we're very happy today to have another session of Inside TV News. I think you're all familiar with that, that this is in honor of Rita Satz, our wonderful board member who has been with CLNL pretty much from the beginning days at Marymount back in 1994. And she'll be on in a moment, I'm sure. Rita was a producer at NBC and involved in investigative journalism. We want to thank very much Magee Hickey, who's attended a number of these sessions and been wonderful at convincing her other TV pals to join us. So today we're very honored to have Pia Lindstrom with us, who has a history of being a critic of TV, movies and literature and theater. And Magee will tell you more about her, and we turn the conversation over to them. If you have questions or comments, please, as I say, write to me in chat, just to me, not to everyone, and we'll have an opportunity. And here is Rita as I speak. Okay, so Magee, thank you. Pia, welcome to CLNL. We're delighted to have you. And over to you, Magee.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to do the Inside TV News for Rita Satz and for all the wonderful people I have met during my career, 40 years in New York City. And my favorite time in my career were my Channel 4 years. I walked into this newsroom in 1986 and just couldn't get over how fabulous everyone was. I mean, they were the leaders in the TV news business in my mind, and Pia Lindstrom was right up there. Pia Lindstrom was probably the first film critic I watched closely on TV, also a theater critic. And what I love about Pia is she is so direct, outspoken, honest in her appraisal of everything, including life and parenting and how we raise our children. And she's very frank about the movies. And I don't even know if Pia remembers, one time I said to her something like, I really want to be a movie critic someday. And she said, oh, but you have to see bad movies as well as good movies. It's not always fun. And so we now will turn our first question. So Pia, who's a few years older than I am, she started in TV news before I did. She started in San Francisco in the early 1960s. And if you can imagine what San Francisco was like in the early 1960s, I mean, TV news was just developing in the early 50s, was a whole new concept. Women in TV news was a whole new concept in the 1960s. So first off, welcome, Pia Lindstrom, and we're thrilled to have you here. And please tell us a little bit about what it was like in San Francisco in the 1960s in a TV newsroom.
I only got to the TV newsroom because I was fired from another job. I had been working for the Fiat Motor Company. I was living in Rome, and they said they wanted to do a publicity tour around the country where a young woman would drive a car. You know how you'd lie on top of the car in little skirts and things, be photographed. And then my father was living in San Francisco, so at the station, by the time I got there, I have to say I had to push the car onto the set because it wasn't working anymore. But anyway, I said, are there any jobs here? Is there anything I could possibly do? And the news director said, well, we're thinking of putting a girl in the newsroom. I said, what is a newsroom? Where is it? And I'm your girl. What do you do? Roger Grimsby was the anchor man and the on air, the news director as well. He kept his office in the bar across the street. This was in San Francisco. So you'd have to have your script approved. You'd go into the bar, it's very dark, and get like a candle, get like this and hold the candle in the dark where he'd be sitting drinking, saying, would you give the approval for this script? The first assignment he gave me was a mother and daughter topless act. Wow. Okay, the second story, I couldn't get that one on. Of course, how could I get it on? The next story was a woman who was dancing She said she was wearing a Band-Aid, and the police said a Band-Aid is not clothing. So I started my story holding a Band-Aid up saying, is this clothing or is this not clothing? The police say it's not clothing. Of course, none of those stories got on the air, and Roger took my scripts and threw them down on the floor in the middle of the newsroom and say, what am I supposed to do with this shit? And I burst out laughing. I thought it was so funny. And he started laughing, and we laughed our heads off. And I said, I don't even know what I'm doing here. So give me a couple of weeks to go ask somebody how you do a story. And because we laughed so much, and I laughed at him, and I found the men, they were all men, there were no women in that department, that were very pleasant, very nice. I never had any of the things that I hear women, somebody taking their penis out or something. It never happened in my newsroom. I never saw that at all. And people were very nice. In fact, the cameramen were the ones who told me, and the editors. I sat with editors and I learned how to put together a story. The other reporters don't necessarily help you. You are in competition. But the editors were very good. I learned, I just said, I need 2 weeks. I could learn this. And I did. I could learn it in 2 weeks. And it's not that hard. You place the camera on the action, on the fire. You say something, this fire has been burning for 12 hours. And then you say to the fire captain, how long will it take you to get this out, sir? So then that's your story. So we had lots of fun. And I remember it only as fun. We covered such ridiculous stories. We laughed in the newsroom. I just thought it was great fun. I didn't know how to do it, but I learned it's not that hard, kids. not that hard.
Well, I think if I can interject, you must have had some real talent, because you have seen reporters who aren't very good at it.
No.
There are some reporters who just don't get the point of it. They don't know how to edit down what they're thinking of saying.
Well,
they overthink some
I can't
things.
relate to that. I don't know what you're talking about, because I didn't sit with other reporters. I did my own stories. And I found it wonderful to sit with the editors. We discussed how to start. It was on the job training, and it's not that complex. So I could get it. And so I was there in the room, the only woman. Nobody ever said anything. There was nothing lewd. They did show dirty movies at the end of the day, but I think they did that in every newsroom until recently, when now everybody's so prudish that you can't see dirty movies after the show. But they always showed those, but there was nothing wrong. Nobody was getting undressed or propositioning me. But it was the time of make love, not war. So the 60s, we thought we were supposed to be making love. So people were not as prudish as they are now. When I hear, he did this and that. We didn't do that.
Right. So how many years, Pia, were you in San Francisco?
I was in San Francisco for 4 years. So in 4 years, I learned how to do this, had a good time. And then I got tired of doing the same stories, because there's not a lot of stories in San Francisco, like murders and buildings exploding. So I realized I needed to be in New York, where they would have stories.
Right. So how did you get to New York?
Well, I made a big mistake. I didn't know anything. I took a plane. And I had never heard the expression, don't leave a job till you get a job. I didn't know that. I had no job, and I went around with my audition tape, which was huge. It was an enormously heavy thing that I had to carry around. Nobody wanted to see it. And I went everywhere looking for a job. And I didn't get a job. And one person said he'd send me back to California. Well, I was already in New York. I didn't know any how you did this. Eventually, somebody at a very low salary said they would, and it was WCBS, said they would hire me as a reporter. I didn't have an agent. They don't like to talk to people. They want to talk to agents. They don't want to discuss money with you. And they got me very little, but and I didn't care. I thought I could get a little money, a little apartment, and it was so much fun. I was assigned to everything, and I really, really liked it. After 4 years, however, I guess something said to me, I want to go to the big time. And I want to go to New York because that's where they'll have big stories and big fires and big crimes and big murders and things. It will be more exciting than in San Francisco. So I moved and I finally got a job at WCBS. And I was I don't think there was another woman there, but I never had any of these problems. Nobody. I didn't go to bed with anybody I didn't want to go to bed with.
Right. So take us to what was it like? Right. But what was it like at CBS? In what year is this around?
Well, if I started like in 66, so the end of the 60s, 68, 69.
So what was Channel 2 News like in those days? You're one of the few women. Was there one woman before you there?
There wasn't one there when I was there. I think they had one was enough. And, but
you were filling that female quota. So take me. What was it like? Because you had never lived in New York City before, had you?
No, I didn't know anything about it. No.
So what was that like to be a reporter in the number one market?
It's called on-the-job training. It's great. You bring to it the enthusiasm of a person who's never seen a subway strike.
Right.
Doesn't know anything about the underground, and no, I liked it. I enjoyed it, and I liked it. One reason I liked it. Nobody ever mentioned my mother. My mother was an actress, Ingrid Bergman. Most people have to want to talk about that. Nobody in the newsroom. They just said, Lindstrom, go do this, and Lindstrom, go do that, and there's a water main break, and there's a thing, and go do that. It was sort of liberating. I felt good there.
Yes, well, I can, attest to that too. It's, a day to day. Each day is a different assignment. And you feel good at the end of the day that you accomplished what you set out to do. There is a water main break over there. There is a murder over there. Cover it the best way you can.
Somebody like me get to the fire so that I can go up to the fire chief and say, when will you have this fire out, sir? I mean, but once I had my trench coat on, my microphone, my pass, said that I was a reporter, I was fearless. And I could go anywhere. I thought it would be awful. And people have the children die, and you have to go to the house and knock on the door and say, I'd like to talk to you about your son. What I discovered is, if people have a tragedy in their life, they actually want to share it with somebody. They invite you in, they open up the albums, they show you the photographs. You sit and you talk to them. I didn't expect that to happen because I thought if it were me, I'd slam the door. I'd say, get out of here. I'm not going to talk to you about my son's death. But they do, but people do. So I learned a lot about people and was taught things every day about how to maneuver in the world, whether you're doing a press conference or you're doing a fire or whatever it is. You have to know how to get to the front and talk. I know, for instance, you don't ask your question the same time everybody else does. You ask about 20 seconds later so that only your voice is heard at the end. Don't shout your question right away. Let everybody shout their question, and yours will be the only voice that will be heard at the end. I figured out, everybody figures it out. I mean, that's how we learn how to do this, so that they can hear your question and they will answer. And I'm sure it helps to be a girl, I guess. Maybe they call on you. I don't know. I never thought about it. They're treating us differently.
But I think that's such an important point you make about, because that was one of the first things that I felt worried about, when you knock on the door of a family who just lost. And, I thought, oh, it's so awful with reporters putting people on camera, and how do you feel And so often it's cathartic and people want to talk.
want
They
to
want
share
to
pain.
remember. They want to share what they're going through. And they
Pain with
also
you.
want to sometimes talk about the loss of the person and what a great person that was. So what I've often loved about the job is we're part social worker, part psychologist. We do sometimes offer comfort to people and help them through their grieving. We also have to know when to walk away.
I wasn't helping anybody, honey. I was getting the story. I don't know.
Yeah, but no, you're getting the story, but there are
No,
times.
I was not a
And
therapist.
sometimes, you know, they keep in touch with you and then you have to figure out, okay, well, I'm not your therapist. I can't help this pain go away. But, you know, if I was able to give you some relief at that moment.
You approach things differently. I didn't.
Well, we all have our different ways, but you know, it's not a job for everyone. So you were so fortunate in that you tapped into something that you were very good at. You were interested in it. When the Fiat job ended and you said, how can I get a job in there? You clearly wanted to have a job in there. And then 4 years later, you get to New York and those New York news directors saw something that they liked in you.
I don't know what you're talking about. They didn't see anything. They didn't even want to see me. They want to deal with an agent. They don't want to deal with a person coming there with the audition tape. I found out later. They want the agent and to talk about the money with the agent. This is what we offer. This is what we have. They didn't want to talk to me.
Right, but well, I don't think you give yourself enough credit. You did a good job because they wouldn't have kept you on. We all know how many people have you worked with.
I wasn't fired, and that is true. I wasn't fired, and I did like it because it's being a reporter anywhere is like educational, and every day is different. Every day is different. It's not if you have a bad day, you won't have that day. Next week you'll have a different day.
You'll have a totally different day, which could be equally bad, but it will be different.
I got married and had children, so I could not keep doing fires and then say, well, while you're up there, you go up into Connecticut, there's a building collapse, and then while you're there, I couldn't do that anymore. So I had to get a beat. So I got the art. I just figured that there wasn't one, and I auditioned to do movie reviews at CBS and theater reviews in the office, at a desk, because I needed to have a job that ended at a certain hour so I could get home. I had 2 sons. So that I left being a general assignment reporter because that requires a different lifestyle, and went to the arts. I don't know why, but maybe because I'd gone to a lot of theater and I liked it, and I know how to tell a story, so I can tell the story of what I just saw. I wasn't necessarily reviewing. I didn't review. I was the arts editor. It was called.
Well, it's the perfect moment to now look at. This is when you're at Channel 4, because that's what I found on YouTube. But here you are talking about movies of the moment. So we can roll the videotape. Now we will go to the videotape of Pia Lindstrom, movie or arts critic, arts entertainment reporter. Shall we say that?
I didn't ever use the word arts. I hear you saying I didn't think about it arts. It was being a movie reviewer, theater reviewer, or I covered the theater. Because it was indoors. You don't understand. I had to get something that was done indoors.
I understand. It's wonderful. But let's take a look at the movie reviews.
The weather reports.
Well, Basic Instinct is just one of several movies released in the theaters this weekend. Pia Lindstrom has some suggestions if you're thinking of heading to the movies.
What's your new book about?
A detective.
Michael Douglas stars in Basic Instinct, a graphic, gory, and yes, gripping thriller about a kinky sex murderer. Sharon Stone is the AC/DC novelist with a fondness for rough sex and ice picks in this movie designed to shock and scare.
I thought you said he was a strangler.
Doesn't matter how he kills.
Woody Allen's Shadow and Fog is his first in black and white since Zelig. It reminds one of Fellini, Bergman, Brecht, and Dickens. But with a New York-sounding Nebish named Kleinman as the central character, it is quintessential Woody Allen. It's not his best, but even his second best is worth a visit.
Now, didn't I tell you the next time you appear in my courtroom that you dress appropriately?
You were serious about that?
My Cousin Vinny is a hoot, with Joe Pesci as a novice lawyer who goes south to defend his innocent cousin on a murder rap. Pesci is wonderful as he confounds them with his Brooklyn accent.
Outfit.
Quite like a durbar, Lady Edsa said.
Ah.
Poetic and highbrow, Howard's End with Anthony Hopkins out of his Hannibal Lecter straitjacket and into an elegant morning coat. Vanessa Redgrave plays the dying owner of a country house called Howard's End that unites two very different families. You might enjoy the rhythm of the Mambo Kings with Armand Asante and Antonio Banderas as Cuban brothers who try their luck in love and music in the New York club scene in the 50s. On the serious side, there is American Me with Edward James Olmos, who follows the dead-end lives of 3 generations of Hispanics who join gangs. On the light side, Noise is Off with Michael Caine in an Americanized version of a British farce about a troupe of actors. It opened today. And next week, look for more on the JFK assassination when Ruby opens. I'm Pia Lindstrom for News 4 New York.
Wow, wasn't that fun? It was such a reminder of what great movies there were. And Pia, your writing is so good. I really enjoyed that trip down, really fun writing and good movie, if you don't call it criticism, at least a movie roundup. Do you know why, Pia, they don't do movie reviews anymore on TV? Just sort of an
Movies
interesting.
are not made for Americans anymore. The movie industry has changed. The only things being made are big, huge blockbusters that are sent to India and North Africa, I don't know where. The movie industry is not for people in cities anymore. We don't go to the movies on Friday. Remember, everybody went to the movies Friday and Saturday to catch the latest movie. Nobody's doing that anymore. First of all, you can get it at home, and you can get the world's movies at home. So it's totally different. I don't go to the movies because I don't want to go sit in the theater. Rather be.
But I could also ask though. You did theater reviews too.
Yeah.
And they don't do that on TV anymore.
I mean, I only did that because I needed to be indoors. I've tried to explain it. It wasn't because I had some gift. My mother's an actress. When I told her I was going to be a theater reviewer, it was like having a viper in the nest. What? A critic? I've raised a critic? No. So, and then she said, "What do you know?" And I said, well, not much, but it doesn't matter because your job is to hold the viewer. It's not how much do I know. It's when you're talking, do they turn you off? Do they?
Yes, and also you're watching it as a viewer. You're giving a viewer your take on what you've seen. It doesn't have to come from some very highbrow elitist place.
It just came from me. I'm just like you. Yeah.
Right.
I try to say I have a degree in this. I didn't have a degree in it. But anyway, they don't do that now because people don't go to the movies the same way anymore. There isn't an audience on television. There's an audience for television news, as you know. So that career is somewhat diminished, isn't it?
Oh, yes. TV news reporting.
Yeah. So this was when we had reporting. And I only did that so that I could be indoors and knew what time the event was occurring. So, but you can review a fire, flames were.
But you also were very good at it. I think you downplay how good you were at reviewing, and the writing is crisp, and you're an appealing person on TV. So people wanted to see you and hear what Pia had to say about this movie or that play. We've seen a little bit of Rita Satz listening in on the class. Rita, I wonder if you have a question for Pia. You have known Pia as long as I have.
Well, we were Can you see me? We were all very excited when Pia came to Channel 4, and I shared with her the dependence that I didn't know she felt. Pia, on the editors in particular, they would find shots and things that I didn't realize were there. I think the most creative work I did was not the shooting of the story, but the writing of the story and then the editing of it, I think where the real work came. And like you, I was so excited when I won the Emmy that my husband had to take it out of my hands physically to let us go to bed that night, because I wasn't used, as you were, to this world. And I don't know that you realize how much admired you were when you came to Channel 4.
No, I was not aware of other people's minds.
We were all excited about it. But did you have the
Who read minds?
more, your cameraman or your editor?
Otherwise, I don't know.
Who did you count on more, your cameraman or your editor?
Well, I learned more from the editors.
Okay, I did too.
They taught you what you need, what cutaways meant, and you have to have a cutaway for everything. You can't just have flames. You have to then go to look at a ladder or a face, put a face in there. So they taught me how you put the story together, and that was very useful. And they were very good at that.
I felt the same way.
I have to do it because now these stories can be very long too. I mean, ours had to be short, you had to get a lot in. But anyway, that was then, and it was.
But you were very good at it.
I have a bad experience in the newsroom or with the news director, as I say. Whatever. It's, I was easy.
We were excited about you being there.
Can I ask a quick question going back to something you said at the beginning?
What was it like?
Go back. Yes.
Well, you were mentioning Roger Grimsby, and as I remember him, he was notoriously grumpy.
Oh, yeah, but he was drunk all the time. He was always drinking. You had to go get your script approved in the bar across the street.
Uh-huh.
Yes, he was an alcoholic, but he was fun.
He had a heart of gold. I just adored him. I went to Channel 7. I was a new reporter at Channel 7, and he was so kind to all the new reporters.
He was.
A really smart man, really intellectual, did not suffer fools at all. He had a surly side to him. He hated people who were going to be toadying up to him, because when I knew him, he was the biggest name in local TV news in New York City at the time. And I just loved him as a human being. I just found he was gruff, but heart of gold underneath. Don't you think, Pia?
Yes, I got along with him very well.
So that's a lesson in how to deal with difficult people.
Well, who was a difficult person? I don't understand.
No, I said, well, he came across as a difficult person, Grimsby, and you were able to charm him and get him to deal with you. I think that's great. I had a question about some of the movies, and the ones we saw in the clip are all movies, as I think Magee mentioned, from years ago that are still very memorable. And one of the movies your mother was in, obviously, was Casablanca, and I was wondering what makes a film that the films endure.
Yes. Yes.
Why is that such an enduring classic that people still love?
Because it appeals to sacrifice for a higher cause. It has the theme of sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
We love that theme. He sacrifices her love for her so she could go off with a stable and worthy man who is saving people's lives.
Unfortunately, not bad looking either, but yeah, okay.
No, well, my mother always said, she kissed him, but she never knew him. His wife was sure that they were going to have an affair. So his wife was always on the set. And I'm told that he never came out of his trailer. He was always in his trailer. And if he came out, she was right next to him. I guess she was sure that people did in those days have affairs with each other when they were saying that they loved each other. It's not unusual. However, that didn't happen there at all because the wife was right on the case the whole time. And so she never knew. She said, I kissed him, but I never knew him.
I love that.
Right.
So
Wonderful movie.
there was
So
no
back-
love lost there. Gary Cooper, that was different. I'm great friends with his daughter, and we say we could have been half sisters if they'd gotten married. Maria Cooper and I are great friends. So they loved each other. And then I think Gary Cooper said something like, and after the movie was over, she wouldn't take my calls.
That's interesting. Okay. Just like a movie.
Yeah,
Right. So can we go back to a little bit to TV news, since that's our topic today? So television news. So you're in the newsroom.
Fall in love with somebody in the newsroom. It could be the same thing. You could fall in love with the news director.
No news director I ever worked for.
Man, come on.
You hear what Rita said? No
Yes,
news director
really
she ever
does,
worked for.
heaven's sakes.
I don't know who you work for, but I didn't work for any I could fall in love with.
Did you fall in love with any of the news directors, Pia?
Yes, but no name.
Okay, no names, but I was the same way. I mean, because I was so enthralled with TV news, you get confused with whether you're enthralled with TV news or the news director or his knowledge or that world. When you're very young, you're
That world,
impressionable.
I mean, yeah, it's okay.
But Pia, didn't you find the news director had power over you? That was maybe
Okay with me, because I didn't know what I was supposed to do, so I was looking for somebody to teach me. Teach me tonight. I didn't know how to do anything, so I was happy to have the news director take an interest in me and show me how you're supposed to cover a story.
Hmm.
Because I told you, I remember he threw my script on the floor. And I started to laugh because I thought it's a funny gesture. He laughed then too, because I didn't know. I had to be taught.
I learned from my cameraman and my editors. I didn't know either. Yeah.
But that was okay.
Mm.
And some of us want to learn. I wanted to learn. We had.
And
I have a feeling, young people, are they having fun now? Are young people having fun? I don't feel it's a problem, and there the issues and things. We didn't have that many issues.
I think some of them are having fun, but some of them are
fun. Go to the bar after. Well, I learned through experience that when I came to New York, I never went to the bar after the show. That was not a good idea, because you sit there drinking with guys and men and women, whatever, and you say the wrong thing, and you blab too much. So no. When I got to New York, I realized that after the show, I went home, and then I got married and had children. So more reason also. But I also didn't go to the places where I used to go in San Francisco, where I thought everyone went. We were all in the bar. The whole staff, led by the news director.
It's true. It takes me back to a whole other time.
Well,
I mean,
I
I
know.
think maybe
The funny
most
thing is,
people
I thought we had
starting
so
out.
much fun, and I don't hear people say how much fun being a news reporter is, and all the places you get to go. How do I get to a water main break underground, for goodness sakes? I thought that it was wonderful. I got to go to places, and that the mayor would even speak to me. I mean, why would the mayor speak to me? Raising my hand.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I mean, the first time I was in New York and Mayor Koch is the mayor, and I'm in the Blue Room, and I'm at the news conference, and I'm asking questions to the mayor of New York
And
City.
he's
And
actually answering them and not saying, shut up.
and he
Silly
actually
girl.
wants something from you. He wants something. You have some power over him in that he wants to be portrayed in a certain way. So that was a very heady thing when you're a young person to all of a sudden think, oh my God. Or even back in the day when we would be interviewing Donald Trump to talk about Donald Trump, here he was, someone who loved to be on TV and he wanted to be portrayed in a certain way. And you get invited into his office and you have power over him because he wants to look good on TV. I mean, like so many people, even actors that I would admire, they wanted to make sure that you had their right side.
Didn't you want to look good on TV when you were on? Didn't you want to look good? You didn't.
Yeah, but that wasn't as important as I wanted to do a good job.
Oh, really? No, I think I wanted to do a good job. also look good and get everything in focus and the right, background.
Yeah, no, I was just always amazed that, people wanted something from me, that I had power over them in some way, to tell the story honestly.
You talk about power quite a bit.
No, but to tell the story honestly. But when you go to City Hall and you're interviewing a mayor and you want to cover the issue and he wants to make sure his point gets across, it's just a different role than just if you were just meeting the mayor. That's all. As a reporter, he wants something from you. That's all.
He wants to look good and I want to look good. I want my questions to be good. I want him to answer my question.
And you want your story to be good.
Yeah, so yes, that was part of the pleasure of it. To say I did a good job. It was a lousy. How about this? The pooper scooper law was put into effect. I was assigned the pooper scooper law in New York.
Remember that woman? Let me ask you something. I, of course, was not on camera. I was Betty Furness's producer. And then she was on camera, and which was wonderful for both of us. Would you ever have wanted to or tolerated having a producer to go out and do the actual interviews and then you do the...
No. Not actual interviews. I like to have somebody come with me. I liked it. They didn't have an extra body to send with me. So, no, I never had a producer. But I would have liked it.
You would have, yeah.
It'd be nice to have somebody to give you some other point of view, but
right. As long as they're good at what they do. I found sometimes I'd work with a producer and they were sort of getting in the way, or sometimes they were really knowledgeable.
We don't need a producer if it's an interview. You need a producer if it's a long segment in many different locations, and you have to transport the crews here and there.
But we did a lot of series.
And you did a lot, Rita, of a lot of investigations where you had to do research and make phone calls and make sure your facts were lined up. We did
stories that sometimes took 3 months to do.
Right.
We did it. You were doing Day of Air stories mostly, although you also did longer productions. We did some Day of Air, but mostly we were doing something that had a title, like Where to Live Late in Life, or investigative reports about adoptions or whatever. So it was a different world.
Yes, and
from
now
a different perspective, yeah.
And nowadays it's changed so much that on the weekend shift at Pix 11, I go in at 2 and I'd put a story on by 5 o'clock, and then I do a different story for 10 o'clock. So it's not even day of air, it's half day of air, it's afternoon of air and evening of air. And it's totally changed. And to hear you both talk about the cameraman versus the editor, it just reminded me, I don't get that luxury. The cameraman is the editor, which in some ways is easier because the cameraman is shooting it and knows what he wants, how he wants to edit the story. So he puts it together the way, I'm telling him too how I want to put it together, but he's shooting the pictures so that he knows the sequence he wants and how it will all flow. So it was a luxury to have those very artistic. We had such lovely editors at Channel 4. They were so good at their jobs, and
if
they took such pride in their work.
The smartest thing I ever did when I started was to say to them, I don't know how to do this, and let them teach me.
Yes.
Because if you said, walked in arrogantly and saying, I want this, this, and this, they would give you this, this, and this, even though it was all wrong. But they wouldn't let you do that if you asked for their help.
Yes. And I love to, and same with cameramen when I started out, and when you start, I would say, does this stand-up make sense? Does it make sense to start with that picture? You would ask the cameramen too, who really, both the camera people and the editors had a real love of the work. They wanted the work, the story to be as good as it could be. Now, do we still have Pia here? Is Pia still with us here?
Yeah, I don't see her. Maybe she needs to connect again.
Okay, let's see if, can someone get in touch with Vera?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll write to Vera.
All right.
Okay. So let me ask you a question, Magee, and then I'm going to go right to her, which is, can you talk a little more about how you interview people? Because these days, as you say, people are interviewed over and over again, and you don't want it to be like everybody else is interviewing. You don't want to get the usual talking points. So how do you go about it? So it's not like, people say, oh, I've heard that oodles of times,
It's different on each story. But I constantly am thinking about what would I want to know if I were the viewer. So I put myself in the viewer's place, and what would I want to know about this? So for example, when I was covering the opening of Sweeney Todd on Sunday night, I'm doing the red carpet. And yeah, I can ask Josh Groban about what he likes about the part. But I also had heard that it had been his dream. I mean, I was reading some background about the show and the Times had an article about how this had been his dream role for a long time. So I asked what it was about it in high school, the first time he heard Stephen Sondheim's music and Sweeney Todd, what was it that he loved? But in each time that you do an interview, you want to try to figure out what makes it interesting, what makes it different, what's new about it. Jimmy Fallon I interviewed at the red carpet. And I said, why do you want to go see Sweeney Todd? And he said, oh, his mother told him it was so great. And he remembered seeing it on a PBS once, and he couldn't get to the theater when he was younger, but now he loves Broadway. So you just try to think of what's different and unique each time. I mean, when you go to a fire and someone has just lost all their belongings, you try to think of it in a personal way about how would this be? What would this be like for me if I lost everything? How do you regroup? How do you keep going? And often people say the most poignant thing, at least no one was lost in the fire. I may not be able to get my old photograph.
Yeah.
They're in my head. I can think of those memories.
So
part of what I think of.
Pia is back with us, and Pia, just to catch you up on where we had, I was asking, how do you interview people who have been interviewed a lot? So you're not asking the same questions, or you're not getting the same talking points, and that's what Magee was discussing, I don't know if you'd like to, how did you approach it? The mayor been interviewed oodles of times, for example. How did you approach it?
Or let's change it a little bit for Pia, since she did a lot of in-studio interviews, and that could be a good way to introduce the Molly Pecan interview. But how do you approach, Pia, people that you're going to interview, like on Live at 5? How did you think about those interviews?
I try not to have any notes. I try to look at the person and speak to them, not ask questions that, and you know what to say because of what the other person just said. You know, you can say, how did you get here? Let's say, I took the bus. You go, oh, the bus. I didn't think you took the bus. I thought you took a taxi. I mean, you know what the next question is by what the person says, not listing my question. So I didn't do it. I never approached it that way. I was there to listen and to maybe give them a question that they might enjoy. Not say it's difficult or something, but something you start off fun. You know, how'd you get here?
Right. And, you know, so many beginner interviewers think about what their questions will be without listening to the answers.
And it's better not to write down a whole lot of questions. I don't understand. I see all these professionals now, or 6 of us, they got all the questions there. Can't they remember the subject enough to listen and make it a conversation rather than asking all these brilliant questions? No, we don't care about how good their questions are. We're interested in the answer. You want to make the place open for the answer. So
with that said, let's listen to one of your interviews because it was so wonderful of Molly Pecan. I don't know the year, but we'll try to figure it out. But if you can roll the videotape, David, thank you.
Yeah. And you'll let David know when to pause it.
Molly Pecan is 83 years old. She has written a book, has a theater named after her, and she is one of the most adored and cherished ladies of the theater. She started as a child performer in vaudeville, toured with Uncle Tom's Cabin playing Topsy, and after traveling with her husband, she perfected her Yiddish, and she is, of course, best known for her extensive work in the Yiddish theater. She's appeared in some 200 productions in Jewish centers. 40 plays were written for her by her husband before his death. Molly Pecan continues to work and to receive recognition. And welcome to Prime of Your Life.
Well, thank you, and you certainly know my life.
Read a little bit about it. You continue working right through, from being a child without a pause right until the age of 83.
Well, there is a cause, first of all, to keep working, because my work is very good for me. People laugh and applaud, and I'm still very vain about being a success at my age. And I set an example for especially people of my age. I do set an example for them to follow. Now, a woman called me on the phone, and she said, Molly, I'm 75 years old. All my life I wanted to be an actor. Should I start now? I said, well, it's a little late. She said, yes, but you're still working. See, so I do that for people. And there's a reason to get up in the morning, as the French say, un raison d'être. You get up, you have something to do, and you know that it's going to help people. And I don't know, it's just a lifestyle, I guess. I'm just used to it. I've worked ever since I was 5 years old.
And you have amazing health. I mean, do you follow a diet or exercise or something that
Well, I work a lot and I eat a little. That's about it. And I take care of myself. I do exercises like you show on your... Oh, yes, I follow those. And I jump rope and I walk...
You jump rope?
Oh, yes.
Really?
And I try to get 3 miles a day on walking in the city where you can walk, at hours when you can walk. And I just keep fit. I don't know, it's a must with me. I don't want to be sick. I hate being sick. And whenever I do have a pain of any kind, I make little of it. I don't fuss about it. And I don't fuss about being old. I sort of enjoy being old now because there's a lot of love and respect, and there's a warmth that I have. I have an inheritance, I think. The people that began to see me and well, here in New York in 1923, but in Europe in 1922. these people are still alive and they're still coming to see me. And of course now the grandmothers bring the mothers, and the mothers bring the grandchildren, and now I'm waiting for the next generation, which are in diapers now.
So when you go on tour, which you still do, I mean, you're still going all over the country traveling, you actually see people who remember you from
Well, yes, people that come and say, do you remember me, so-and-so? And one man came over to me, this was pathetic. He said, Molly, you're the only person of my generation still alive. Here's a man who has nobody in all the world, only me, because he came as a child to see me. And I get remarks like that from people. I get lovely remarks, and of course, some very funny ones too. You know, an old lady looked at me, she said, don't be so proud at your age, I'm older. I'm 86 years old. I said, well, that's lovely. How did you get so old? And she said, I lived a little longer. So I always have fun with my people, you know, they are amusing and they're kind. And I have no trouble with all the different generations, the younger people. And let me tell you something rather peculiar. I did a show called How to Be a Jewish Mother with a black man. Now, what's his name? Oh, a colored man, anyhow. And after that show, all the black people came to see me, so that I have quite a number of black people in every concert that I do. And they recognize me, and they liked what I did, and so forth. And so all this, you know, you feel that you belong to more than your just little one corner in the world. And this is what I've been raised to do, and this is what I'm doing.
The Yiddish theater at one time was very active.
We stop, pause here.
It is much
Stop,
less
David.
active today. Do you see any possibility of a revival?
Okay, great. I love the line she said, I don't fuss about being old. Great attitude. So you did make it very much a conversation where it wasn't like, you know, I have question one, then I go to question two, but let's talk. The interview went back, it was in 1981, so just a little while ago when most of us were quite a bit younger. Anyway, if you want to pick up again, Magee, you're on mute. Yeah, if you can unmute. There we go. And then we'll have some time for questions, I hope. Yep. From other people. There you go. Okay. Go ahead, Magee.
Yes, we also want to get questions from other people. But Pia, I'm just curious, when you look at that interview, aren't you taken with what a good interviewer you are and were?
And I don't use notes because it's a conversation. It's not me coming up with brilliant questions. It's a conversation. I never like to have notes with, particularly if it was Pavarotti or some great artist or something. I would never use notes then. But people like it better because you're just talking.
So yes, and you're talking so from the heart, but that's the way you are. I mean, you are yourself always, so that when you look at yourself on, you know, old clips, that's the same Pia that's here right now. And so many other people in our business are different people at different times. And the red light would go on the camera and they'd assume this position, this posture of someone else. But you were always authentic, an overworked word, but you were always yourself.
These are just different ways of performing. There might be somebody who's a comedian who has to work on his jokes and his timing, and he's going to do this joke and get it right. He has to do it over and over again, and he has to rehearse it. It depends on the person always that you're talking to. I think it's perfectly all right to prepare ahead of time, you know, but not everybody needs that. It depends on who you're talking to. And if you're talking to an artist, they really don't like to see a piece of paper with questions on it. It sounds like by rote. Like it doesn't matter what I'm going to say. You're going to just do your questions.
Right. So speaking of questions, shall we see if some of our participants have some questions for Pia?
Yes. So let me kick off with a question, and then I hope we'll hear from other people. You can write to me in chat, just to me, please. You mentioned before that you had met and talked with Donald Trump quite a while ago, and I would love to know what your impressions were back then, how he loved to get press attention. And is it the same Donald Trump we've come to know these days? But your comments on that would be really interesting to hear.
He was charming. He was funny. He was easy to talk to and brief. That's
So maybe he's changed a bit.
About him. He knows what to say. He says what he wants to say, and that's it. I didn't have, it wasn't difficult. It was only some minor thing. And anytime I ever did see him, I remember once after I got a divorce, I took my 2 children for Thanksgiving lunch to his hotel there. I didn't know where to go. And he happened to be there. And he came over. He was so nice and so pleasant. Saw me there trying to create Thanksgiving. He was very, very polite and very nice. So I don't have that experience that some people have had.
Interesting.
I never interviewed him. I'd only talked to him.
Okay, right.
I have to tell, can I just tell you something?
Go ahead.
I interviewed Donald Trump once, and he said, "It is so good to see you again. You're doing such good work. He never seen me before in his life." This was the appropriate thing to do.
Just
Well,
think
he was trying. He was trying to be nice.
So,
He sure was.
yep. Pia, journalism has changed. Journalism today and everything, and I just be curious to hear any thoughts you have that you want to share with us about what you think of journalism these days. Did we just lose Pia again? I hope not. Oops. There you are.
I'm the wrong person to ask because I don't go on the internet. I'm not following all the things. My sons got their information. I still watch the news on television at 6 o'clock. So, I'm not with it anymore. And I don't know, I don't have anything to say about it because I don't understand it. I mean, I'm not involved in it. I read the newspapers, and even that is old. Right? You get the newspaper, that's yesterday's news. But I like yesterday's news. I enjoy it. It's fun. Coffee, and I read, I like the Wall
So when you watch
I like the
the
Wall
TV
Street
news,
Journal. Their art section of the Wall Street Journal is very good.
you mentioned watching the
I love their
TV
film
news.
critics, their theater critics are the best. But your children don't watch TV news at all, Pia, right? I mean, this is a great concern of mine that no one will be watching TV news. They get it all off of their phones.
Yes, they're on some other thing, and they're welcome to it. It's okay. But yes, no, they're not. They're not. They're just a few of us watching the 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock news. But we still are there.
Yes, for a while longer.
That's what,
Just a follow-up quick question, please. When you watch the 6 and 7 o'clock news, do you sit there and think, why don't they do it the way it used to be done? Or are you happy with the way they're doing it?
No, I never say that. I never say that. It's a different time. Okay. It's a different time. And there are women everywhere. I mean, buxom women. Have you seen some of these women? Like, I couldn't get a job. No, I mean, it's legs. We didn't show our legs in a high heels. I see them. They're trying everything to get viewers, and I'm sure they are getting viewers. This is show business. What do you think it seems like it's? You don't think this is truth, do you? You say this is the truth?
There's a middle ground because the viewers are also older too, so they don't want to see necessarily. They want to see what the story is.
I don't know.
They don't want to.
I don't know.
They don't want to see how you're looking. Although people do comment, but they want to see you looking appropriate.
I don't. Well, okay, so
yeah. Well,
I guess you'll do what you need to do to keep your job. That's what we do.
Yes. Yes, then that's what it's all about.
What it's all about. Do they want me back tomorrow?
Yes.
So let's go to Karen. Karen, you wanted to come on?
Yeah,
in?
just a quick comment building on what Magee just said. If you want to know who's watching the 6 o'clock news, look at the commercials and see what
old people
see to whom they're geared. And they're all about medicines and you know, they're definitely building and they're broadcasting to my age group. And that's who's watching. That's who's watching these days.
It's true. I have to say also, I do watch cable news, including Fox, which drives me nuts just to see what they're saying. But I often turn to the local news, Magee's channel, because I feel like I get news rather than just points of view. And as a New Yorker, I want to know what's happening in my city. So again, the advertisers, I'm going to see things about laxatives and memory, etc. But I think the local news serves a real purpose, and I'm very glad to have it, as well as telling me, do I need to wear a raincoat or take an umbrella?
Right. We appreciate that. I mean, when there's a big story, I want to see a local news coverage of it. I want to see like 5 different stations and how they cover it, but that's because I'm still in it, I guess. But I can't imagine a world without local TV news, because the more local it is, the more I like it. I'm just not someone who's focused on international, except when it's the Ukraine, because I'm obsessed about what's happening there right now. But it does that what will happen when there isn't local TV news. We may be moving towards that time, but I have a sense that Pia's not concerned about that. Pia, what do you see about the future of local TV news
anymore? So I'm not worried about this.
Well, but you watch it sometimes.
Yes, I do. I watch the local news because I like to watch the local news, but that's all.
Does it concern you that it may not be around? The audience is so tiny.
These things don't concern me. There's nothing I can do about it. I am not concerned. There will be other things, better things, with music and dancing girls. Who knows what's coming? Something else is coming. I mean, no. I'm not looking for the past to recreate the past. It was better then. I don't think it was better then. It was different.
Yeah, it's not a question of better than, but there will be a time pretty soon when there won't be a newspaper to hold. And we like to read things in a newspaper, but the number of people who are reading newspapers is way down.
But they'll do journals, they'll do magazines, they'll do it somewhere else. I have lots of subscriptions to all sorts of magazines I never used to read, but I do now, because there's a magazine for every subject that you might be interested in. So you'll find other ways to be informed. I'm not afraid, that things are going to be different. It will be awful. It will be good. It'll be different. That's revamp.
Right. Rita, how do you feel about that? I was wondering what Rita's take is on TV news and newspapers.
I just think it's over. I don't think any of the young people are watching, or what will develop in its place. I don't know. I worry about the way they're getting their news, because it's not edited. There's nobody who's saying it has to be responsible or that it has to give both sides. You watch.
It doesn't give both sides.
Pardon me?
It doesn't give both sides. You just talked about Fox or something and say, well, I have to watch that. I don't want to watch it. They give different views.
Yeah, but that's we're talking about television. I'm saying the young people won't get, as you said,
they're
getting it from television.
On their iPhone. They're seeing it differently.
But when they get it on their computers,
yes,
or their iPhones,
yes.
I'm not sure that they're going to get balanced things. I don't know what they.
But we never did get balanced things. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, we did. We did. I think there was a real effort on local news.
Have a bias. The Wall Street Journal has its own theory. The Post. But
there was a real attempt not to except for maybe a couple of papers. But I think the journalist's ideal was to at least try to be impartial and to give both sides. Now even the New York Times does opinion news.
Yes.
And that's different.
I don't like it, and it's so boring. The Times now is just boring.
Yeah, well,
Wall Street Journal, but I don't like the Times anymore. It's just bad news. I mean, I don't want to hear it. I don't care for it anymore.
Is your
But
problem
I'm
with the
agreeing
Times the way they
with-
report the news, or just that there's too much that's or too much? There is a lot of bad news. So is it the way they're reporting the news or what they're saying that turns you off? I find
I'll
that
answer
they-
just my
they
opinion that
report
they
the-
have more of an agenda in their news coverage than I ever thought they did. I really felt there was a time where there'd be the editorial side and then there'd be the trying to be straight news, balanced side. And I think it's all morphed into one in the Times, sadly.
opinion news was a no-no, and it's no longer true.
Yes. Yes. Correct.
And so if the young people are just going to be getting their news on their devices, who's going to control whether that's opinion or not? It's going to be all opinion news. So you will select the side that you believe in, and that's all you'll hear. So that worries me.
And for very good reason.
So
These are really difficult times we're in.
can I ask something that has nothing to do with the content of the news? Do the voices of the women reporters drive you crazy on local news? Does it bother you?
Pia, do you have an opinion about that?
No, I'm not.
You haven't, okay.
Well,
I see Susan nodding yes. I don't know.
to
if you
find
comment
everything
on
that's wrong. I don't know.
I want to call on.
All right, I will.
I saw her nodding
You,
yes.
you got me nodding. Yeah, I've been finding that the women are behaving a little bit more too feminine. And there's giggling, maybe it's my age, but there's giggling, there's more communication between, even that I'm a PBS watcher and I miss Judy Woodward. And since the two that took over, I think that they're trying to be objective and things like that. But what I'm noticing is that there's a lot of communication between them that you never saw between two men. And when they're just women, there seems to be more socializing going on in a way that you never saw men do it. Now, maybe I'm looking for that, but I'm missing the hardcore men talking objectively. Now, am I showing my age and am I missing something? But thanks for calling on me. That's all I have to say. And I with this, all these people that, are in that field, I'm just wondering, am I just seeing it as a little old lady or am I seeing something different?
I think it goes back to Pia's point is that everybody, including PBS, they're all just trying to find the viewers. And so if they're doing more chit chat and too much interaction, that may just be a way that they're trying to engage the viewer and keep the viewer there. I agree with you. I don't want to hear all this giggling. I don't want the anchors to look like movie stars. I just want the facts, ma'am. I just want to hear what's going on in the world. But I think it's a last ditch effort to try to keep an audience. So they'll see whatever works. And you can vote by remote control. Whether you continue watching them is what matters to them. So I think it is probably an age issue for all of us because we're used to the old way, which was, it was a man at a desk who just told you the news, and then it got to more of a chit chat, and now it's gone like overboard of chit chat. So I'm with you, though. I agree with I just want the facts, ma'am.
Well, we're going to wrap up this session. I'm glad that it's been more than just the facts, ma'am, or in this case, ma'ams, Pia and Magee. I want to thank you very, very much for coming today, for hearing about your background, your insights, and we very much appreciate it. Magee has been a great friend of the school, and we thank you again to Magee. So can we please all thank our wonderful speakers?
Thank you so
And
much.
thank you, Pia. Thank
Good
you,
to
Pia,
see
for
you.
always
Back
being
with
Pia
us
and
this week.
Rita. We love you. And
Thank you. It's good to
Rita,
see you both.